Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining me. I'm Mark Rosch, president of CLEwebinars.com. I'm an internationally recognized speaker and author on the subjects of using the internet for investigative and background research, Google search, and Google Cloud apps. I've also co-authored numerous books and hundreds of articles on these and other related topics. Over the years, I've received numerous honors, including being inducted as a fellow in the College of Law Practice Management, an honorary society that honors and recognizes distinguished law practice management professionals, and in 2013, I was named to the Fast Case 50, which recognizes 50 of the smartest, most courageous innovators, techies, visionaries, and leaders in the law. I'm a longtime member of the ABA, having served in numerous leadership positions, including a 3-year term on the TechSHOW Planning Board not that long ago. Now, let's jump into the survey report. Since 2001, the ABA's legal technology. Wait, what? No, wait. I'm here live. I'm not a cat. I'm prepared to move forward. Wait, let me see if I can turn this off. Hold on. Give me a second. Oh, here. This is better. Since 2001, the ABA Legal Technology Survey Report has polled lawyers for their opinions about the legal technology options available to them. One of the areas the survey investigates is access to and attitudes towards training for the technology that lawyers use in their practice. Even though lawyers are notoriously late adopters when it comes to technology, overall, the state of adoption, comfort, and facility with technology tools in the legal industry is good. The survey responses do, however, offer some insight into areas where improvement can still be made. The 2020 survey questioned attorneys across the spectrum of law firm sizes, including 26% who are solos, 30% of respondents at firms of 2 to 9, 17% at firms of 10 to 49, only 5% at firms of 50 to 99. Then we had 10% of respondents at firms between 100 and 499, and 12% of respondents at firms of 500 or more attorneys. The COVID-19 pandemic self-isolation in 2020 shone a light on the importance of lawyers adopting, understanding, comfort, and training on the hardware and software technology they utilize in their practice. Anecdotally, we heard many stories of attorneys scrambling to cobble together the technology they needed to work from someplace other than their office. This survey reached attorneys from March through May of 2020, so later responses may have included the influence of the seismic shift to a work from home culture necessitated by the COVID-19 pandemic, but some might not. It's heartening to see that a solid majority of respondents to the survey, 82.2%, responded that it was very important or somewhat important to receive training on their firm's technology. We will, however, dig deeper into those numbers later on as we get into the analysis. Similarly, 89.1% reported being very comfortable or somewhat comfortable with their firm's technology. This represents a small increase from 2019. Solo and small firm attorneys were most likely to report being very comfortable with their firm's technology. The results show a smaller gap in comfort between these smaller firm attorneys and their counterparts at larger firms than in past years. Counterintuitively, though, it is the respondents who report the most access to training at their firms who also report being the least comfortable with that technology. So let's dig a little deeper into the numbers. Overall, there was a slight decrease in the percentage of respondents indicating technology training is even available at their firms, but it still represents a thin majority of those who report that they have such access. This year it was 59% versus 59.6% in 2019 and 56.9% in 2018. These responses show a marked decline, though, from the 74.3% high of respondents who responded affirmatively in 2017. The closing of the comfort gap with technology between larger and smaller firm respondents does not appear to be explained by an increased access to training by those smaller firm respondents. Digging deeper into the responses, it's no surprise that it's the largest firms that are most likely to offer training on the technology that they employ. Similarly, it's no surprise that solo and smaller firm attorneys reported significantly less availability of training at their firms. It's unclear whether respondents' relative lack of comfort with technology is due to lawyers just not availing themselves of available training, receiving ineffective training, or that lawyers at larger firms who have access to training might recognize how much more they need to learn to be proficient, and therefore become more comfortable with their technology. Attorneys at larger firms might also feel more comfortable because they know that they have IT staff in-house who they can call if they have some sort of difficulty. All of this begs the question, should lawyers even bother training on technology? Isn't it enough to just practice law? Well, when asked the question, are you required to stay abreast of the benefits and risks of technology as part of your basic competency requirements? Attorneys generally are more likely than in previous years to answer in the affirmative. This closely mirrors the ABA's 2012 adoption of Comment 8 to Rule 1.1 of the model rules. The comment states, to maintain the requisite knowledge and skill, a lawyer should keep abreast of changes in the law and its practice, including the benefits and risks associated with relevant technology, engage in continuing study and education, and comply with all continuing legal education requirements to which the lawyer is subject. Over the course of the last 8 years since it was initially adopted by the ABA, 38 states, 76% of all states, have adopted some form of this rule as part of their rules of professional conduct. There's no state-by-state breakdown of responses to this survey available to explain whether the disparity in affirmative responses versus the percentage of states that have made it a requirement is a true reflection of the responding attorney's ethical duty. Are they covered by newly adopted ethics rules that require it or not? Legal tech journalist Bob Ambrogi is keeping a running tab of those states that have adopted the comment. Here's a link to his website. We're up to 38 states now that have adopted it, or roughly 76% of our 50 states. Solos are most likely, at nearly 72%, to report that they are required to stay abreast of the benefits and risks of technology. Respondents from firms of 50 to 99 were close behind at 70%, followed by attorneys in firms of 2 to 9 at 67.1%, 500 or more at 63.5%, 100 to 499 at 62.5%, and 10 to 49 attorneys at 60%. It's still troubling, however, that 20.5% of all respondents indicated that they did not know the answer to this question. It's even more troubling that this is an increase from the 18.4% who didn't know the answer to that question in 2019. While not everyone agrees on the importance of technology training, more lawyers are seeing the importance. Overall, 82.2% of respondents indicated it was very important or somewhat important to receive training on their firm's technology. It's somewhat troubling to see that the respondents to the 2020 survey from smaller firms, either solo or firms of 2 to 9, were less likely than average to respond that it is very important to receive training on their firm's technology, versus the 42.2% overall. These are also marked declines from the 2019 results. Interestingly, no respondents in the middle range of firm sizes, 50 to 99, or the largest firms, 500 or more, indicated that this training was not at all important. The bad news, though, is that fewer attorneys than in past surveys are reporting having access to technology trainings at their firms at all. But still, this represents a thin majority who report having such access. These responses show a marked decline from the 74.3% high of affirmative responses back in 2017. The 2020 survey makes it clear that the larger a firm, the more likely respondents are to indicate that technology training is available to them. This is a trend that we've seen in previous surveys. It's probably not that surprising to anyone. The closing of the comfort gap with technology between larger and smaller firm respondents does not appear to be explained by an increased access to training by those smaller firm respondents. 100% of respondents from firms of 500 or more and 90% of respondents from firms of 100 to 499 indicated they had technology training available at their firms. Similarly, it's no surprise when we look at smaller firms and solos that they reported significantly less availability. It's unclear whether the respondents' relative lack of comfort with technology is due to the lawyers just not availing themselves of training that's available, receiving ineffective training, or that the lawyers at larger firms who have access to training might recognize how much more they need to learn to become proficient, and therefore more comfortable with their technology. Attorneys at larger firms might also feel more comfortable because they know that they have an IT staff in-house who they can call if they have difficulties. The survey also asked, where do you turn first when you need or want to learn about technology? And overall, the highest percentage of respondents, 25.8%, indicated that it's their IT departments that were the first place that they would turn. Next, respondents indicated that they were likely to turn to Google or other non-legal specific sources, 24%. Peers, legal technology consultants, or a bar association rounded out the top of the list. This shows a marked decline in reliance on IT staff and Google from the 2019 results, but a marked increase in reliance on consultants, bar associations, and peers. It's no surprise to see firms relying less on in-house IT staff and more on consultants, as many of them may be looking to trim expenses during the COVID-19 pandemic. Similarly, it's heartening to see attorneys, particularly solos, taking advantage of the resources provided by bar associations. These resources may include practice management consulting, CLE presentations, publications, and more to help lawyers learn about, evaluate, and use technology tools in their practice. Not surprisingly, the likelihood of reliance on IT staff is related to firm size, with larger firms generally reporting a higher likelihood of this being their first option. Similarly, the more likely a group of respondents was to report that IT staff was their first option, the less likely they were, generally, to report a legal technology consultant as their first option. One exception, though, is firms between 50 and 99 attorneys, where legal technology consultant was never reported as their first option. It's important to note that solo and small firm respondents were significantly more likely than average to indicate Google or other non-legal specific online resource as the first place they turned to learn about legal technology. This is important for two reasons. One, it's important to note that solo and small firm attorneys rely on Google and other non-specific online resources for their initial information more than any other source. Two, it's also important to note that these 2020 responses indicate a slight decrease in the reliance on those resources since 2019, but it represents an increase over the 2018 survey. Technology training for lawyers is important. The good news is that overall, a majority of lawyers, more than 82%, agree, responding that getting training on the technology that they're using in their firms is very important or somewhat important. The bad news is that slightly fewer attorneys than in past surveys are reporting having access to technology training at their firms. The 2020 survey makes it clear that the larger a firm, the more likely a respondent is to indicate that technology training is available to them. In fact, respondents from the largest firms, 500 or more attorneys, showed a slight increase in availability to 100%. There were also slight increases seen in firms from 2 to 99 attorneys and 100 to 499 attorneys. However, despite those increases, the trends for solos and firms of 10 to 49 attorneys continue downward. We're long past the time when it can be reasonably argued that a lawyer can provide efficient representation to their clients without utilizing technology tools. This should be painfully obvious after so many attorneys at firms of all sizes were forced to work from home on short or no notice, scrambling to cobble together the necessary technology they needed to replicate their work environment from home during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's not to say that using technology in the practice of law doesn't come with its own difficulties that can affect a lawyer's productivity. However, many of those difficulties can be minimized through adequate training. Technology is not just useful in providing effective representation to clients. In more and more states, familiarity with the risks and benefits associated with technology is one of the measures of a lawyer's competence. This is based on the recent-ish adoption of the new Comment 8 to the ABA's Model Rule 1.1. In the 38 states that have adopted some form of this new comment to the rule, claiming ignorance of a particular technology for not implementing it or implementing it incorrectly is not a defense and will not protect lawyers from a potential ethics violation. These considerations are especially important when dealing with client confidential information in a newly configured home office setting. Overall, however, barely more than half of the attorney respondents to the 2020 survey report having technology training available at their firms. Those who could benefit the most from using technology more effectively in their practices, solo and small firm attorneys, are even less likely than the average to report having training available. This lower than average availability of technology training at these smaller sized firms is confounding when you consider that nearly 70% of solos and over 80% of respondents from firms of 2 to 9 indicated that it was either very important or somewhat important to receive technology training. The survey structure doesn't allow us to discern if these solo lawyers who report no technology training at their firms are not seeking out training or are just not finding training if they are seeking it out. The fact that over 90% of solo respondents indicated that they are very comfortable or somewhat comfortable using their firm's available technology may give us an indicator that these respondents are overestimating their abilities with the technology and underestimating their need for training. Is it possible that some or all of these respondents indicating that they do not have technology training at their firm are not using technology at all or using it very little? Here again, the survey structure doesn't give us a way to know this. For those attorneys who may not be using technology in their practice, we recommend they go outside their comfort zone and seek out technology conferences, especially now that many have gone virtual like TechShow, where they can learn what technology is out there and how that technology might benefit their practice. These non-technology using attorneys will hopefully gain insight from these conferences and will explore what technology they need to practice more efficiently and competently, and then obtain the necessary training. Lawyers must also learn to overcome their own estimation about their technology competence and understand that training would benefit them. Once they do, they will hopefully seek out educational resources that are already available to them. Many of these resources can be located by conducting more effective internet searches. Solos and small firm lawyers shouldn't feel shut out of training despite their lack of an IT department or a big training budget. There's so much free and low cost technology training available from vendors and manufacturers, bar associations, CLE organizations, and other sources online. However, the 2020 survey results tell us that many solos and smaller firm lawyers appear not to be taking advantage of these free and low cost training options, even though much of it is just a simple web search away. There's more detail on the questions and responses in the technology training portion of the Tech Report in the article that accompanies this presentation. Thanks for joining us today.